Ladies and gents, welcome to a important video where we're going to talk about emotional management, the implications that your personal abilities to manage your emotions has on the growth of none other than your agency. Okay, very, very important if you don't have a team. It's also extremely important if you do have a team, but in my opinion, poor emotional management is detrimental to the growth of your agency in the early stages when you don't have a team, and it's less detrimental when you do have a team. We'll get into why that is. So really important video that I think will actually help you grow your agency and also probably become a lot happier because you'll have less sad moments in life and more happy moments. All right. So first of all, I wanted to define a concept. This is a mental model that I like to think of, and I've talked about this before in previous videos, especially the one I did about my past relationship with Nicole. And the uptime concept is pretty simple. Imagine you have a graph. Up here is 100%, down here is 0%. This is days in terms of just like whatever here. And the uptime is really just, if you're at 100% uptime, that means you're basically peak output. You are running at like perfect, all cylinders are firing, and you're probably getting a ton of work done. Okay, 0 is like you've burned out and you really can't do anything. You can't work on your business at all. You can't even send like an email. You're just burned out. In the middle is that sluggish period where it's like, you're half-assing it and pretty much you're not really getting a whole lot done because you're half-assing it, all right? A lot of people fluctuate on this scale just because of emotions. I mean, that's really the primary thing. That's part of the primary reason. And what I want to talk about in this video is uptime and how you can keep your uptime here and like in this range, in the fourth quartile range, because a lot of people, they're not like this. They're like down here and then they're here and then maybe they're here for like 2 days and then they go down here. And I know this because I was once this person. I was actually like this in the first year of my agency. I was all over the place. It was very difficult. And over time, fortunately, I've just like grown, I guess you could say spiritually, and read a lot of different books on, processing my emotions and the ability to share my emotions and different things that helps me go from like being in, let's say, peak state to 0 and only staying in 0 for maybe 1 day and then being able to come right back up very quickly. Okay. This concept is also talked about by a good entrepreneur. His name is Patrick Bet-David. He ran an insurance agency, PHP, and he calls it the start-stop. And start-stop basically means, as an entrepreneur, how often do you start-stop? If your mom dies, do you stop for 3 months because you're mourning so intensely you just can't get over it? Or do you stop for 2 days? And then you keep going and you move on. And that's the power of like the ability to process emotions really quickly. So really good video that I'm actually making because yesterday my cat died, and yesterday I was just like crying all day, and it was a really intense day. Super sad. It was random. He was only 3 years old. It just happened out of nowhere. And I was at 0 yesterday. Okay, so I woke up to him crying, took him to the vet. He died. Super sad. Cried the whole rest of the day. Mourned intensely. And by the end of the day, I was feeling pretty good. I was like, all right, this is great. I really let go of this animal that I loved so much, who was my best friend, etc., as an animal. And today I would say I'm at like 80, 85, 90%. There's still a little bit, but I'm back, I'm working, I'm feeling good. And that's really the power of emotional management. And I think it's super important for you early on in your agency when you're the only person in the team, because when you go down, the whole business goes down. So it's pretty radical. Now, if I go down for a day, let's say everybody else on our team is still working, it's less detrimental, right? So what are some things that you can do to actually help you, be able to stay up here in this zone, in the 90 to 100 zone, where your output's going to be really high? You're also just going to be a lot happier in general. This isn't just about really like growing your business, although it's highly applicable, but it's also just about, in general, being happier in life and less sadness. So these are the things that really help me probably the most, and I want to share them with you. This book was absolutely phenomenal. I've read all of David R. Hawkins' books. This is actually the name of my cat. I named my cat after the author of this book. His name was Hawkins. And amazing book. It's here on the shelf somewhere, but I can't recommend it enough. All right, so there's many different applicable techniques that I won't get into in this video. I just recommend you read the book because I'll suck at explaining it. Another really good concept that's, in my opinion, a little bit more practical than some of the things that are in that book is the 4-step concept that was created by Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, This is a legendary concept, and this isn't really exactly what it is. This is just a simple like chart. And I highly recommend you research into the 4-step. It's really good for processing like resentments, and different, traumas, past things, anger, fear, just any kind of negative emotion, not necessarily negative, but just like less preferable emotion that may be taking energy away from you and causing you to not be able to be in the 90 to 100 range in terms of uptime and be somewhere down here in the 50s and 60s or even lower, etc. This is really good for processing emotions. I highly recommend you research into the 4-step and how that works. Another thing is meditation. This is just like literally your daily vitamins. I cannot recommend meditation enough. You should do it every single day. I do it almost every single day. Sundays is the only day where I sometimes miss meditation, but highly recommend it. It's just a beautiful thing to sit there and think about nothing and come away from it. It really kind of silences the mind and allows you to just focus on whatever you want to focus on. It just gives you better control of, I would say, your ability to just do whatever you want to do. Because when you don't meditate, at least for me, I'll sometimes get anxious and my mind goes all over the place and I feel like I have less control of the mind. Whereas when I do meditate, I have a lot more control to be able to just say, okay, I'm just gonna focus on this. I'm turning off the phone. I'm putting my phone in the other room. This is what I'm working on, and I'm not gonna get distracted by anything else. Okay, so yeah, I think we talked about the inner work. Really, I mean, this is what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. But inner work is really the best thing you can do to be able to have a 90 to 100% uptime as much as possible, and it all averages out, right? So this graph is obviously kind of a simple representation, but if you look at your uptime in any given year, right, is it in the 60s, is it in the 70s, is it in the 20s? Like, ideally you can have an uptime in the 90s. I think that's a phenomenal goal to strive for. I don't think anybody will ever reach 100%. That's impossible in my opinion, because there's just too much that goes on in life, and there's a lot of different catalysts that can occur. If I haven't already mentioned them, a breakup, a family member dying, a cat dying, a weird financial thing occurring. There's infinite things. Your house floods, the natural disasters, COVID. There's so many different things, and I think that it's really good to be able to invest in emotional management so that when these catalysts occur, you go down for 24 hours, not 24 months. Okay, I think there's actually probably people that are still extremely fearful of this whole pandemic thing, and it's been a long time. And versus, maybe if you have really good emotional management, you can be able to process the fear and let go of it after like a week when the whole thing started, whatever it was, 2+ years ago, however long ago it was, right? So this is really the ability to go from 100 to 0 for a short period of time, back up to 100, and just bounce back very quickly. Fewer stops, more going, more output, more productivity. Okay. If I didn't talk about the Solopreneur Bridge already, because I've re-recorded this video a couple times, this bridge is actually a pretty, I've talked about this before, but basically it's the concept that in the beginning when you're starting the agency and you don't have any team members, there's this bridge to cross in which you have no team and then you do have a team. Okay, it's a pretty simple concept, but it's actually like a revolutionary transition when you go from being solo to actually having a team and having multiple people. Why? Because risk management, like risk is spread out across the team. You become you have more ability to adapt to the markets. And if you go down to 0 for 2-3 days, like I did recently, I did for yesterday, 24 hours, the whole team is still working, right? It's not just like it's not like the whole company goes down. So it's much better if you can cross this bridge, but it's difficult to cross this bridge if you have poor emotional management, because you're going to be going down so much and it's going to be like this constant fluctuating thing. For me, I experienced this around 20-25 KMRR. I started fluctuating. So fortunately, I was able to build somewhat of a small team. We had like 1 or 2 people at that time. But I really had to work on my emotions. And I think that if you are struggling to have a high uptime, just take a big step back, read some of these books, read into the 4 steps, start meditating, and hopefully these 3 action items will really help you kind of stay more grounded, stay more centered, and have the ability to manage your emotions and bounce back very quickly. All right, ladies and gents, let me know your thoughts on this video. It's a bit of a different video inspired by yesterday's event, and much love. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao.